Got it. Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this free chat all about placenta encapsulation. My name is Grace Roman, but most know me as the Bronx Doula Placenta Alchemist. It's an honor to be here to answer your questions or any concerns that you may have in regards to placenta encapsulation. I am a veteran doula. I've been doing this for over 10 years. Really excited to share my knowledge with you, and I really look forward to seeing you in one of my classes. All right, so let's begin. Anyone have questions that they want to ask?
Come on, guys, don't be shy. Speak up and say hello. Let us know what your interest is in becoming. Are you all here because you want to become placenta encapsulators? Are you wanting to learn more about ways to support your clients? Talk to us.
Hi, this is Sherry. Hi, Ann. How you doing? I'm sorry I'm not on camera because I've been sick and I look horrible. Um, I just I'm interested in doing it because a lot of people are asking about it. So I would appreciate anything you have to share with us and let us know when you're going to have a class on it, the actual class.
Right now we have a class scheduled for December the 8th over in Philly. So if you're anywhere near Philly and would like to attend, you can visit maternitywise.com, and there you can book your class.
Okay, what about if you don't live on the East Coast? I'm on the West Coast.
So people like you, Sherry, I was just thinking
Mhm.
that. So people like Sherry, if you are not able to get to it in person, we will be providing it virtually as well. So the same thing, go to the Maternity Wise website, click on training events, scroll down to that event. There's only one listed, but there's 2 tickets on that event. So you can pay for the in-person ticket or the virtual ticket.
Okay.
You'll get the login information, and you'll be able to view Grace doing the whole shebang.
Awesome.
You won't be able to put
Awesome.
your hands on it, but you'll be able to watch the training live as it's happening, and you'll be able to ask questions live as well.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Anyone else?
I'm interested in the process and learning more about it, but I already signed up for the training in Philly, so I'll be there with you in person.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, so I see a lot of questions about what placenta encapsulation is. So it's called placentaphagia. Anytime that you eat any part of the placenta, whether it's the placenta itself, the membranes, or the cord, it's called placentaphagia. That's the act of ingesting placenta. Placenta encapsulation is not new. It's been around for a really, really long time. Unfortunately, there hasn't been much recorded history of it. What we do have is very limited. It's an indigenous process, meaning it was created and started within indigenous communities. And then as civilization grew and we became more urban, the practice then turned into a more urban type of practice. And the knowledge continues to grow from there. Any questions? It's so quiet.
So what are
Okay.
all the different ways that, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, that's okay, sweetie. Go. And I'll go after you.
Okay, I was just gonna ask, what are the different ways that, like, I see somebody said something about a tincture. I know we could do it in the pill form. I know some people actually just fry it up and cook it up and eat it. So what are all the different ways that it could be ingested, or ways that we could provide for our clients to, feed them the placenta?
So you're right. You can ingest it through the encapsulation process, which is when you take a placenta, give it a nice little wash, you cut her up into really small pieces, and then you dehydrate it. And then you put that into capsules for the parent to consume. You can also have tinctures, and there's several types of tinctures. You can have an alcohol-based tincture. You can have a glycerin-based tincture, and for people who don't consume alcohol, and you can also use that. You can also add it to your food. So people cut into small cubes. They make smoothies out of it for breakfast in the mornings. The flavor is, you know, hidden away because you're using a lot of fruits and veggies, so you really don't taste it. Then you have people who actually make meals out of it. They make, you know, like a bolognese sauce with it, or they make candies out of it, little truffles where you can ingest it that way as well. Another way of ingesting is during your postpartum, right after birth. If you are bleeding a little bit extra, your midwife will, or your doula can give you a small piece of your placenta and put it between your cheek and tongue and allow it just to sit there for a little bit and then swallow. That helps with excess bleeding after birth. Any other way? I have no, I apologize. Someone's at my, I may mute myself. I will be right back. I apologize. I apologize. I have a house full of children and pets, and they all want my attention when I'm always busy, and I'm sure other parents can relate. So going back to consumption, you can also, like I said, you can encapsulate tincture. You can also make what's called a mother broth. When you take a placenta and you steam it, the fluid or the liquid that's left over when you're steaming the process, you can give that to the parent as well. They call it a mother tea. That has to be used within, you know, 24 hours. You can't have that sitting around for too long. Other ways of consumption is you can make salves for the breast and the nipples, because a lot of times parents, when we're starting to nurse, it can get a little bit hard on the nipple and the breast. Another way of consumption would be to create some sort of art with it, some sort of memento, something that you can hold on to and pass it on to your child later on as they get older. Okay, so Shayla or Sheila just asked, she says, are you able to do multiple things with one placenta, or do you have to use it all? Yes, you can do a lot of things with placenta. Obviously, you can encapsulate it, you can tincture it, you can make a mother tea. You can also turn parts of the placenta, once you have dehydrated, into like an inclusion jewelry type thing, where you can add it to a resin base or some other material to keep it as a keepsake. Placentas typically, once you process them and you dehydrate them the proper way, can last at least 6 months, if not more. It all depends on individual. The same parent can have multiple pregnancies. They can give birth to different babies, and each time they will react differently to their placenta. So it's on a case-by-case basis, the benefits of it. Sometimes even within the same, you know, parent, one placenta and one pregnancy actually worked really well for them, and then the next, they didn't really feel any kind of benefit that they think. Again, it's on a case-by-case basis. But yeah, you can do several things with the placenta. You can even make what's called a placenta print. I'm sure you guys are familiar with that, where people take an imprint of the placenta on a cardstock or a watercolor paper, and then you can adorn it and color it however way you want and preserve that and add it to your beautiful family photos.
Vita asked a question about how is it stored and how long could it be stored. I don't know if she means like the raw placenta or after encapsulation.
Well, typically you want to get to the placenta as soon as possible, right? So if the parent giving birth and you're not there, you have up to 8 hours to get it, to get to it. The parent themselves are going to have to keep that placenta on ice or inside a fridge or freezer during that time. And then once you get it to your, workstation, you need to work on it ASAP. This is not something you're going to put in the fridge all the way to the back and forget about it for days. You're going to work with it right away. There's two ways that I think about placentas. I think of them, in this biological, physiological way, but there's also that spiritual way. And you want to give reverence to this placenta. And by, you do this by working on her right away. You don't want to put her to the side and be like, I'll take care of you later. You're not paying homage to the ancestors. You're not paying homage to this new life that this placenta supported and bringing forth. You're not paying homage to the parent who has gone through the most beautiful and hard transition. So you want to get your hands on this placenta as soon as possible, and you want to work on it as soon as possible. If you know you can't handle it right away, freeze it. Put it in the freezer as soon as you get to your workspace. I always recommend as a professional doing this that you have a separate fridge, even if it's one of those mini fridges that have like a little freezer and then a little fridge on the bottom, something small and compact. Always label everything and work on your placentas right away. It's imperative. That was a really good question. Any more?
What about once they've been encapsulated or tinctures or whatever other form that people might use them? How long can those last?
So typical encapsulation can last about 6 months out in the cupboard, all the way in the back in the dark, no humidity. Placenta and water do not mix, they're enemies. So the moment any kind of humidity or any kind of water touches that placenta, you are going to have the growth of bacteria, mold, and other things that you do not want the parent to ingest, right? So always keeping it in a, cool, dry space that is dark is the best thing to do. Tinctures can last indefinitely. Once you preserve, especially if it's an alcohol tincture, the same cannot be said about glycerin. Alcohol tinctures can last an eternity. You can put it away and use it for yourself when you're going through some sort of major shift. You can save it for your child if they're biologically female. They can use the tincture when they're going through their first moon. It helps them with, the transition from childhood to actually blooming. The glycerin tincture, it lasts, I would say, about maybe 6 months if you're really good with it, especially if it's a small amount. Larger tinctures don't last as long, obviously, because there's just more room for error. That's why I like to keep tinctures small. Typically it's 2 ounces. The most that I would do would be 4 ounces, but I've had clients who've done a gallon, like they literally tinctured the entire placenta. And that lasted them a long, long time. Then you have food. If you're using it for food purposes, that placenta needs to be cooked straight through like anything else and eaten right away. If you're using it for smoothies, you have to, cut it up into little cubes about 1 inch by 1 inch, spread them out on a cookie sheet or some way, so that way they're not touching and layered on top of each other. You freeze them, and then you can put them in a Ziploc bag and store them away. So that way when you need them, it's easy. Just grab one little cube, boop, and you go about your business. Yeah.
During your placenta encapsulation class that we're going to have, are you going to show us and teach us how to process the placenta from beginning to finish?
Yes, most definitely. So during class, you will have the opportunity to actually touch a placenta and smell it and see it, right? Placentas are odoriferous. Some placentas smell more than others, depending on their hormonal level, depending on how fresh they are, if they've been frozen or not. All those things, you have to take into consideration. You will also get to process the placenta in several ways. We will do half a placenta, just the raw method, and the other half is going to be the steaming method, right? We follow a lot of TCM ideas for placenta encapsulation, specifically the yin and yang type of energy, right? We want to balance this parent's energy. So we will learn how to look at this parent and say to yourself, this parent might benefit from a raw preparation versus a steam preparation. What else? I will teach you how to do a placenta print. I will teach you how to dehydrate, how to safely cut it, how to sanitize before, during, and after, how to dispose of this biological material. I will teach you, if you go to the website and you look at the list of all the things, you will see it's a huge amount of information that you're going to get from me. I also pride myself in teaching from a multicultural perspective, I also like to bring up the fact that it's not only women that birth. We have a whole community out there, the LGBTQI community, who also can potentially benefit from placenta encapsulation. We will talk about this. For not everyone should take placenta encapsulation. There are medical conditions that do not allow for a person to ingest their placenta. But there's also a person who might be trans and they may not want to have all those female hormones running through their bodies right after giving birth. They might want to go, back on T, transition back, or just, stay away from it. We will talk about that as well. We will talk about storage, suggested dosing, right? Because everybody's different. So again, we want to look at each parent and decide, do they benefit from a larger dose? Or would they benefit just from a minimal dosing? The same thing with tinctures. We will learn about how to make placenta art using, a blood print. If you want to learn about inclusion, jewelry, and all that, that's a whole other lesson that we can put together for you. That's a separate training. But you will get at least the basics when it comes to placenta print and art making. Yeah, it's going to be, you're going to get a lot of information, so be ready.
It's going to be a lot. You think our doula trainings make your head swim? Well, guess what? Wait for this. I put a link in the chat. She mentioned TCM, and I just wanted to make sure everyone knew that TCM is referring to traditional Chinese medicine. There's a whole, if you don't know already, there's a whole philosophy around hot and cold and just different, I guess, circumstances within health, within our environment, within the food we eat, and spirit. And there's traditional Chinese medicine incorporates, it looks at it's very holistic. It looks at every aspect of your life, not just symptom A plus symptom B equals pill C. That's not how, that's American medicine. Traditional Chinese medicine is different.
Yeah, so, we always say TCM, traditional Chinese medicine, right? But in the reality, the foundations of TCM have a lot of roots centered in Africa, in African holistic medicine, right? And then as we traveled around the world and we started spreading, knowledge spread, the Chinese really gravitated to this and really took it and embraced it and grew this knowledge even further, right? TCM is an amazing support for people who are seeking a more traditional, holistic, physiologic type of not just pregnancy and birth, but also postpartum. We have to look. I often look at placenta encapsulation in a more spiritual way. There is information that the placenta gives to you just by you looking at it. Again, we will talk about that too in class, of how I intuitively work with the placenta, and I can tell a lot about parents, about relationships. I can tell a lot about the health of that parent during the whole pregnancy. Placentas are magical. Let's just say that they are amazing. They should be given, the reverence that they deserve, and we will learn a ton of how to do that.
Shayla asked about the like resources and the equipment and like a supply list. We will have a supply list that is provided to you during that training. And I think we're working on finding a way to create a kit for you all so that the items that are just a little more random, things that you wouldn't necessarily be able to get a hold of real easily, that we'll have a kit that you can purchase with just those things, just to get you started. I mean, things like gloves and face masks and things like that you'll need to be working with, you'll be able to replenish those on your own. But things like a dehydrator or filters or like just different things that you'll need. When I say filter, I meant funnel. Or like a pill filler mechanism. Like there's little pill filler machines that you can get. There's all kinds of stuff that is a little bit more random, I guess. And yes, we could give you a list, and yes, you could probably go on Amazon and find each of the things, but it might just be a little less overwhelming if there was a way that you could just get all those things and products that you know are good and useful, because Grace would use them. So you know someone who does this for a living is going to give her stamp of approval on the items, so you know that they're of quality.
Yes. One of the things that you get from my class is my book. I have a book and manual that I have spent a lot of time developing, writing, rewriting, editing, sourcing, the whole nine. And in that book, literally, I give you step-by-steps of what to do on day one. That's the day that you go and get the placenta, and how to set up your workspace. I even go as far as giving you all the materials you will need on day one. Then I give you day two, the same thing, all the listing of all the things, how to set up your space, everything that you're going to need for that day. I even give you the list for how of the materials that I use for, cleaning and sanitizing. Oh boy, I mean, I really go forward. I even go as far as giving you recipes that you can use to create edibles, consumables out of placenta. It's all there. You're going to see it. You're going to have time to experience it face to face with me, but you will also have my book and manual, which you can, you're going to have at your own time at home that you can read, study, because you're going to need to, because my final exam is not easy, but it's not too hard, but it's not easy. So all the information on that exam, you're going to find in the book. So you're going to have that.
But also, you said day one, day two. So during our training, it's actually going to be a 2-day training, you guys. It's going to be the evening of the 8th and the evening of the 9th. It's after the doula training that's going on that day. We're going to spend time over the course of 2 days. You want to explain why we're doing it over the course of 2 days?
Yeah, placentas need time to dehydrate properly. That's why it takes 2 days to do any encapsulation. You minimally need 2 to 3 days, because that placenta is going to need the time that they decide that they need to dehydrate. Like I said before, water and placenta do not mix. They don't get along. And if that placenta is not dehydrated the right way, you are creating the perfect environment for pathogens, which is another reason why we ask you, in order to qualify for certification, you will need to take a bloodborne pathogens course, which Maternity Wise offers. You will also have to take a food handler certification course, right? Because you need to know how to prepare these things. There's a lot of correlation between placentas and just regular cooking, placentas and herbalism. There's a lot of things that go hand in hand with both of them. And at the end of the day, it comes down to proper handling and storing and sanitizing. You do not want to create an environment for pathogens to grow. You do not want to make a parent sick. And ultimately, if the parent gets sick, baby gets sick. Oh, hell no. Like, that is not acceptable. You need to do it the right way. We will learn how to get it done.
I know that you've mentioned before about sterilizing your equipment and sterilizing your surface, and you have a pet peeve. You want to share your pet peeve about that? About people sterilizing their surfaces correctly?
So, a lot of trainers don't talk about it, but I will. when you're sanitizing your workspace, and after you're done sanitizing your workspace or your tools, the dehydrator, whatever it is you're using, you will not take that placenta and put it directly on that sanitized space, because there are chemicals in there that do not belong in the human body, right? We are into this new phase, thanks to the pandemic, where we're wiping everything with Lysol, we're wiping everything with Sandy cloths, you know, we're using hand sanitizer on everything, including ourselves. That is a no-no when you're working with placentas. You want to sanitize the space, you want to sanitize the tools, but you want to give time for those spaces and tools to air out, right? And then you can use them, right? But again, do not take placentas and put them directly on top of a space that you just sanitized. It is, ooh, that placenta is no good anymore. Now you're gonna have to tell the parent, oops, now we're gonna have to throw it away because you can't consume it. You don't want that. Yeah, that's a huge pet peeve of mine. Just, yeah, don't do it.
I have the same pet peeve about hand washing and stuff. And I always tell people, like, you know, and I even got in trouble when I was a childbirth educator in a hospital, because we actually were instructed to teach this. And then I had a parent who like messed it up and got all upset at her nurse for using hand sanitizer. But the thing I always tell people is, you know, you can put hand sanitizer on, that's fine. Now you have dead germs and a bunch of chemicals on your hands. Or you could wash your hands and wash the germs away. Or even better, use the hand sanitizer, kill everything, then go wash your hands. Like wash the dead germs and the hand sanitizer away. So now you really truly have clean hands. So when I'm sterilizing things around my house, if I'm trying to, you know, sterilize a surface like a cutting board or something like that, yeah, I might spray it with some kind of like a bleachy cleaner or something like that, but then I'm gonna rinse it off, because I don't want to be chopping up my vegetables or whatever into, you know, into my Clorox or whatever it is that I use. So same thing. Same thing.
You know, a lot of us don't have the privilege of having a separate space outside of our homes to encapsulate, right? If you have that, great. If you don't, that's okay. But we will learn how to properly organize your kitchen and your workspace so that you're not contaminating your family's utensils and counter, you know, and all that good stuff. Because who wants to, you know, eat somebody else's placenta? Like, that's yuck. You don't want that. Imagine, you know, you have placenta blood everywhere, using the knives that you cut your food with to cut a placenta. Hell no. Like, no, you don't want that. So yeah, we will talk about that and I will show you. I actually have videos on how to properly wash your hands, because we forget how to do it. We're not taught how to properly wash our hands normally. Like, what doula training actually, you know, besides maternity wise, actually teaches you how to wash your hands right, how to put on gloves and how to properly deglove, right? So that you don't contaminate yourself, the placenta, or get your family sick, because hello. That's why out of all the things that I recommend, I always ask you guys to have a separate mini fridge on the side. Doesn't take much room. Plug it in, you put it on the side, and that's the fridge where anything that has to do with placenta goes into. That way you're not contaminating your family's refrigerator and your food supply with someone else's germs.
Are you going to teach us about any herbal preparations to use with placentas? Is that going to be part of the course, or herbal, botanical, anything extra?
I don't feel confident in doing that. And this is the reason why. Sometimes parents ask for us to do something with their placentas. Time passes, they forget that they asked us to do certain things with their placentas, and now they're putting that on their children, on their babies. And that creates hazard. For example, I'm sure you might have heard this, but there's been instances where parents ask for a steaming of their placenta with adding herbs, such as, you know, like hot peppers, lavender, like other herbs that increase that yang energy, that heat energy, right? You prepare it, and then you add the same peppers and things to the final preparation, and the parent, it's like, oh yeah, I feel so good on my skin. And then they forget, oh, and they put that on their babies. And can you imagine what that's like for a brand new, any size baby to have this really spicy, hot, cream, salve, balm, whatever you want to call it, on their skin. So no, I don't advocate for putting herbs in any encapsulations unless this parent is really, really knowledgeable with when it comes to TCM, and they have a provider or a practitioner of TCM actually give them a prescription, right, with very detailed instructions of what they need and how to prepare it. That would be probably the only time I would do an encapsulation with added herbs. Other than that, we're steaming the placenta just as she is. We're working with it just as it is. I believe that the membranes of the placenta have enough oomph to bring up that heat energy if you prepare it the right way. But that's just me.
I think that that's smart because, like you said, and also when you're using herbs, it's not necessarily something you're going to need always, right? It might
Yeah.
be something you use for a couple of days, but you still want to be using your placenta. And also, I'm glad you said that, because I wanted to clarify that this isn't a certified herbalist class. This is an encapsulation class. And if you wanted to do herbalism, or you wanted to add herbs or whatever, anything, essential oils, I've heard all kinds of things added to placenta pills or placenta salves or whatever. You should get training in those modalities in addition to this one. And if you want to mix those two different modalities in your own practice, that's on you. But this, I want to clarify, is strictly a placenta encapsulation class.
Yeah.
Where you're gonna, and that's enough. I mean, gosh, there's so much just to know.
I'm the advocate of wearing one hat at a time. Like, you might be a trained, fully licensed nurse, but when you're working as a placenta encapsulator, you're no longer a nurse. You are a placenta encapsulator. You might be an amazing chef and you have all the training and skill in the world, but while you're working with the placenta, you are a skilled placenta encapsulator. Like, keep things where they belong. If you really want to work like Anne said, with herbs, there are many beautiful, wonderful herbalist trainings out there that you can take. If you want to learn more about TCM, there are schools where you can, go and register and actually train to be a TCM provider, a traditional medicine doctor. And there's a question here says, I see you give 12 months, but what if a life event happens? Would there be extensions?
Just like all of our classes, we do grant 6-month extensions. If there is a change to the curriculum, Grace will let you know. But I believe we'll be able to grant 1 6-month extension.
Yeah, that's what I do. I just give you 1 extension. I also ask, not because I want to be nosy or whatnot, but typical, like any other school or any other type of learning environment. What's going on? What's the excuse? Show me a letter, write it down, just so that I know, because there's a lot of people, unfortunately, that life happens and you get busy doing things and you're like, oh my God, I forgot. I'm supposed to be certifying. I'm supposed to be doing these things for my class and I just forgot. It happens, right? But you have to be accountable to your own learning. You want to become a certified placenta encapsulator? Yeah, you get 12 months. But you'll really, really benefit from getting your things done right away. Let's go. You want to start creating and providing services for your community. I live in the South Bronx. My neighbors, my community do not have a year of time waiting for me to finish all my certifications and do what I need to do to provide service. They need service yesterday. Therefore, I'm just going to get to work, get it done, provide my services to the community as quickly as possible.
That's a really good point. Does anybody else have questions? You can write them in the chat, or you can just pop in. Let us see your beautiful faces and you can ask a question, or if you don't want to be on camera, you can ask a question, just unmute yourself. I know there was quite a few of you that have popped in since the very, very beginning. But I just wanted to make sure y'all knew that this is open. This is an open chat. This is for you
Yeah.
all to ask your
Open
questions.
conversation, yeah.
So how many of you here are curious, like from a consumer standpoint, like maybe you want to encapsulate your placenta in the future, or are you here as I'm a doula, or I'm going to be a doula and I want to know how to do this, or maybe not even a doula, but you want to do this as part of your career?
Hey, Ann, it's Jerry. Yeah, I'm interested in doing it for my clients, because some people have been asking about it, and I told them I don't have that knowledge in that particular area yet, but I will be taking the online class. So for sure.
Awesome, awesome. And Vita said to serve offer the service to her clients, and Shayla said offer the service to her clients.
I plan to offer the service to my clients. My daughter, working in conjunction with my business, has already started providing, but want to expand and want to make sure that things are always been done to the best of the client's benefit and safely.
I
I
mean,
love
just think about it. If, you know, if you take the time to learn and practice from a safe perspective, that's just going to open up doors for more growth, right? So clients are going to be like, oh my God, I received the most amazing service from my doula. You should go. You should go get her, so, you know, go talk to them. They would treat you like the queen and king that you are, right?
Thank you.
Plus, if you've been around hearing me talk for any amount of time, you know that I always say it is better to have more skills when it comes, especially when it comes to maternity care. The more skills and the more knowledge that you have, even if you, let's say you decide, you know what, I don't want to encapsulate placentas, but I just want to know more about placentas. I just want to really understand placentas. That knowledge is going to serve you as a doula. It's going to serve you as a postpartum doula. It's even going to serve you as a lactation support person. This information is so valuable. You know, placentas are one of those things that we kind of look at as like this mystery, right? And it's something, because it's a mystery and because we don't have a lot of just knowledge available about placentas. We don't talk about placentas in the everyday. Many people who get pregnant, they're like, I have a what? It's a what? What does it do? You know, so a lot of people don't even know what a placenta is, right? And so because of that, unfortunately, it becomes this this thing that can be used to manipulate you, you know, to scare you into agreeing to different things, whether it's an induction or a cesarean or whatever, right? And so if you have knowledge, that's not something that would be able to happen to you. If you have knowledge about something, then you're not going to be fooled, right, into agreeing to something based on, you know, maybe a fable. So let me give an example. I've had many a doctor who have told my clients that they have to clamp and cut the cord immediately, or the baby's heart will pump all of its blood back into the placenta and the baby will die. And I'm not even joking. Doctors say this. I've had at least 5 or 6 doctors that I've heard with their own mouths say that. And to me, I'm like, how are you a doctor if you don't even understand the anatomy and physiology of how the placenta works? Like, what? Right? But someone who doesn't know anything and hears their doctor say that, they're like, oh God, please,
Of
clamp cut the
course.
cord before my baby dies, you know?
Yes.
But this is the thing. We don't have to live in ignorance, because ignorance can lead to, you know, can be used to create fear, which is used to create compliance or to create obedience, right? So having this knowledge is really powerful. Knowledge about placentas is really powerful. You guys don't even even if you just got started in the birthing world, you have no idea. This is the tip of the iceberg, right? This knowledge is really, really important. And I feel like it's maybe one of our little secret weapons as doulas to help protect our clients. Just this knowledge and being able to share this knowledge. It's so, so, so important.
You know, a few weeks back, and I shared this with Anne when we were talking about last week, we are all on TikTok now. So I was on TikTok and I was, scrolling through, and I happened to scroll to this doctor on TikTok where he was talking about lotus birth and how disgusting that is and how dangerous a lotus birth is and da-da-da. So for those of us that don't know what lotus birth is, essentially it's a belief of causing no harm, right? So of using no knives, no scissors, nothing, allowing this baby to be born, allowing the placenta to be born and stay attached to that baby, to that infant, until the cord itself dries and falls off, right? And there's a whole process that you have to do. You're not just taking this placenta and just letting it sit and rot and just get nasty. No, you're curing this placenta similarly to how we cure a ham or any other, type of protein. You're doing the same thing in the placenta, using herbs, using salt to keep, the smells and the rotting away, right? And that placenta is sitting on top of ice at all times so that she is always cold and taken care of. One of the things that happens when a baby is born is that they now have to adapt to this world that they're being born into, right? Their blood pressure has to come into balance with the outside world. And what's happening is that pulsating of that cord is bringing as much blood back to that baby, because that is baby's blood after all. That's not the parent's blood. That is the baby's blood that's circulating between baby and placenta, and that blood has to come back to that baby, right? So the cord will pulsate onto the baby's blood volume and blood pressure levels to the outside world. And at that point, the pulsating stops. And then there's this wonderful thing called Wharton's jelly. And it's exactly that. It's a gel that covers the cord. Some people, some babies have more of it than others. I will show you pictures during the training of what they call a Wharton's jelly embolism, but essentially is an excess of Wharton's jelly on a cord. Anyway, Wharton's jelly works similarly to a tourniquet. As soon as it hits air, immediately, as soon as that baby's born and that cord comes out and it hits air, it begins to dry. And as it dries, it creates a tourniquet on that cord. So not only is the blood being stopped because the baby now has a balanced blood pressure, right? But now you also have Wharton's jelly creating this tourniquet around the cord so that the blood flow back and forth slowly stops. The placenta literally is holding nearly 30% of that baby's blood volume. Can you imagine you as an adult losing 30% of your blood? I mean, never mind having anemia for the rest of your life, never mind it possibly killing you, right? We need to allow this cord to do its job. We need to allow for delayed cord clamping so that this baby receives all of their as much of their blood back. So that way they have a head start to life. It increases their iron. Some babies, though, when they get extra blood, when the provider allows for that transfer of blood to happen, they might get a little bit of billy, but that's normal. Even babies who have their cords cut early on get a little billy and they have to spend a couple of hours under the light. Or you can sit with your baby in a window and allow sunlight to naturally do the things that it needs to do. You can nurse your baby, and nursing your baby helps the body wash out all the excess billy as well, right? So there are ways to physiologically support this infant, and it begins with the placenta. It always begins and ends with the placenta. Right? If a placenta is so damaged, oh my God, you're 42 weeks, that placenta is old, it's not functioning. Excuse you, have you seen the different shapes placentas take? There's a reason placentas do what they do. Sometimes they attach to a part of the uterine wall where it's not getting enough blood flow, it's not getting the what it needs. So guess what? It creates another lobe on the other side. And it starts, taking the nutrition and whatever it needs from that extra lobe that it grew to support this, fetus. And if that extra lobe stops working or it's not working efficiently, the placenta will do it all over again. It will create another lobe someplace else. Even migrate. Some placentas actually move. You have this is why when we're talking about placenta previous, and other, things, we will talk about all that in class. I don't want to give up my class before. It's hard. Once I get going, it's really hard for me to stop, but placentas are really that great, right? They can actually migrate. Placentas actually can slowly over time migrate into a better place within the uterus to provide that fetus the most blood perfusion as possible. There's this maternal fetus circulatory system, right? Just like our heart and the rest of our body, we have our own circulatory system. Babies have that with the placenta while they're in utero. Anyway, so yeah, placentas are amazing. They do more than just sit there, feed the baby, oxygenate the blood. No, it does a lot more than that.
I love your passion. True.
I hate it because just like you said, and this is especially true in Black and BIPOC communities where they scare women with these ideas and, these are all textbook shenanigans. Since when is a pregnancy textbook? Like, pregnancy is a natural physiologic part of our lives. It's exactly that. It's natural. Anyway, it's really important. I'm an advocate for, protecting Black women. And it begins during that pregnancy. It continues into the birth and into the postpartum period. You have to take care of women. You have to support them. And how do you do that? By gaining knowledge. And this is a knowledge that they don't want you to know. Placentas are worth up to $50,000 within the medical system. They're saying you are throwing your placenta away, when in reality, once you sign those pieces of paper, yeah, you're thinking they're throwing it away. And they're like, you didn't read the fine print, because the fine print says now that you sign your placenta away, they can do whatever the hell they want with it. They can milk it for stem cells. Remember Henrietta Lacks, right? They can milk it for stem cells. They can do, scientific research on it. They can send it to the pharmaceutical to make makeup, There's so many things that they can do with the placenta. It's unbelievable. So even if you are not consuming it, you want nothing to do with it, take it home. Bury it somewhere. If you want, throw it in the trash. It's yours. You do whatever you want with it. But try not to leave it behind for someone else to profit. I mean, they're already charging you thousands upon thousands of dollars to give birth in their facilities, right? If you're giving birth in a hospital, you're spending anywhere between your insurance, but you are spending anywhere between $30,000 to $50,000, depending if you've had a surgical birth and if you have complications and they have to give you blood and all these other things. The price can increase. It just keeps growing. So not only are they making money out of you as a consumer coming in, receiving a service, but now they're also making money out of your placenta. Hello. So please, this is why you have to educate yourself so that you can advocate. It's really important.
100%. And I think that it really also comes down to trusting our ability to recreate. We're so easily scared into believing that our bodies are malfunctioning, that our bodies are dangerous for our baby, that our body's not doing the thing that it needs to do. And so therefore we need rescuing, right? We need the salvation of the system. And that's just not true. Hello, the world has been peopled long before there were hospitals and long before there were people giving birth in hospitals. So we don't need to be saved from this process. Our body knows exactly what it's doing. And just like Grace explained, I mean, that is nothing short of miraculous, but it's true creative intelligence that our body can do whatever it needs to sustain and grow this little life. And things about birth and breastfeeding and the placenta, there's things that have not been, and I'm not going to say cannot be, but have not been explained by science yet. And so they remain these, off, things that you can't touch, things that you can't, only the professionals know what to do with those kind of things, right? But really our body has these really amazing safety mechanisms, right? And the placenta and the cord, the way that they operate together immediately after birth to make sure that the baby's okay before it stops doing its job, like it makes sure that the baby is surviving before it stops doing its job, right? And how does it know that? It just does. Like they communicate, right? And there's energetic communication, there's chemical communication, there's all these different ways that our body and our baby's body speak to the placenta, and the placenta speaks back, and they have this whole dialogue going immediately after birth. And what if your placenta doesn't let go in the first few minutes because your doctor has a golf game that they need to get to and you're taking too long? Take a walk, doc, because the placenta knows what it's doing. Leave it alone. I teach about, you know, when the baby comes out and the placenta is meant to be emptying into the baby, giving the baby all its blood back. If you stop that process, the placenta can get confused and it can get what we call sticky.
Yeah.
So then we have this placenta that doesn't want to come out because it's like, but I have all this, but does it go to the mom? And I can't, I'm trying to put it to the baby and it's what's happening. And what do? You know how to solve that? If they've already clamped and cut the cord, you know how they solve that? They just open the maternal side of the cord that they've clamped and they let that blood drain into a cup. And then oh, suddenly the placenta decides to let go because all that blood was meant to go to baby in the first place. And if it had, the placenta would have let go in good time. It would have been fine. So it's so frustrating the way we interfere, but then we have to rescue because we've interfered and we have to do all these other things, you know, and it really messes up the beautiful, perfect system that already is in existence that we're just.
Active management of a placenta, I think, is the most dangerous thing that could be done. And we discussed a little bit about that in the placenta encapsulating course. Like, why are you manipulating this process that's essentially is working on its own, and here you are trying to augment it because you have what? Like, you're doing your job, you're at work. Where do you have to be? You need to be at work. Like, take your time. And this is why, you know, as birth workers, we have to learn about these things so that when we sit with our clients and we're educating them about, well, are you interested in placenta encapsulation? Have you ever considered? And they're like, oh, what is that? And then you get to explain to them what it is and how it works and how it can benefit both her and the infant. Super important to learn. Active management is really detrimental. Placentas, like Anne said, they have, you know, we're all made of energy, right? And we have the brain cells and the neurons, right? Placentas also have a command center within its cells that tells it what it needs to do. I mean, we just learned recently that the fetus can send some of their stem cells to repair the parent, you know, any kind of damage the parent might have within the body, so that they can continue staying pregnant, so that they can, you know, give birth, right? Because you have to see the fetus similar to like an intruder. You know, this fetus came into this womb and they're making themselves cozy and they're going to do whatever it takes to keep surviving so that they can develop and be born. And the placenta is that center. That's like the fight center. That's where you create all these wonderful behaviors and chemical exchanges so that that fetus can continue growing, but at the same time protecting the person who's carrying them. It's a two-way street. This is why I often go back to the yin and yang theory of TCM, because you can't have one without the other. They're both separate yet united. They both do, you know, different things, but at the same time, they complement each other.
I've had this argument about, and I'm not going to go into Roe v. Wade or anything, but I've had this argument where there's people that say, oh, you have to do this, or, you know, or you have to abort the baby or the mother will die. And I'm like, well, if the mother dies, then the baby dies.
Exactly.
So, did you not get that part of it? It's like there's this one little caveat that people don't quite, you know, it's the chicken or the egg. It's like, well, if the host dies, the parasite dies, right? So if we're trying to keep the host alive, we're trying to keep the parasite alive, we probably should focus on the host, you know?
It's
And I hate
interesting.
to say parasite and host, but kind of along the analogy of what you said, you know,
Yes.
you have this being that is dependent on the pregnant body to fulfill its job in order for little person to be able to grow and come into the world. And if we don't do a good job taking care of the host of that process,
You know,
hello.
it's so interesting what happens when someone gets pregnant, right? The moment that they say, I'm pregnant, now the whole world stops focusing on that individual, but they focus solely on what's happening in the uterus. And they forget that without that person who's carrying that uterus, you wouldn't have that little being going in there. So why not take a step back and take care of that person? Maybe, you know, they will have better birth outcomes if we stop stressing them out about, I'm trying not to curse. I'm trying to be. That's another thing
I don't have
about
a
me.
censor button for you. I don't have a beep button.
I have a foul mouth, so I apologize if it just comes out, but whatever. We tend to forget that this gestating person, this parent who's going through, it's amazing. Pregnancy is amazing, but Lord, you know, pregnancy can also be freaking crappy. You know, you're tired, hormones all over the place. You're hungry, but you're not hungry. You're thirsty, but you don't know what to drink. You want to sleep, but you can't fall asleep. You want to do all these things. Your clothes don't fit the way they used to. I mean, there's just so many things happening. Your skin changes, your hair changes. There's just so much going on. Your teeth. I lost, you know, I have a tooth that I lost, and it was all because of my pregnancy. You know, this little being inside of me, they needed the calcium. I don't need the extra tooth because I got, you know, 31 other teeth. So forget about it. I mean, it's just, let's focus back to where it matters. Let's go back to the beginning. And it begins with that parent. Take care of that parent. Nurture them. Give them the information that they need so that they can advocate for their needs. And you yourself can also advocate for their needs. You can't give informed consent. You can't consent to anything if you don't know all the details that you need to know. And unfortunately, when people are birthing in hospitals or hospital-based birth centers, they're not getting that option. It is, you signed a piece of paper that says, as soon as you walk through the doors, we do with you whatever we want. So now you, as an educated consumer, because at the end of the day, you are a consumer, you are paying for a service, whether it's Medicaid or private insurance, don't matter. You are paying for a service. Therefore, you should be given all the information necessary to make decisions for yourself and for that infant that's on its way. Just saying.
We go heavy into informed consent versus implied consent in our
Yes.
deliberations, and that is a big one. I wanted to back up really quick. Vita asked, does placenta insufficiency prevent a family from being able to use their placenta? But before you answer that, we were planned to end 2 minutes ago, but I think we should answer this. And then there was one more message at the bottom. Oh, it was just, okay. So if you could answer that, and then we'll let you guys go. I know you probably didn't intend to spend all this time with us, but we can't stop talking because we love this topic. This is like, this is the stuff right here.
Yeah, get a bunch of birth workers together in a room and it will never end. It just keeps going.
Good luck.
So
Yeah.
placenta insufficiency, I touched a little bit about it, you know, earlier when we spoke about, you know, when the placenta attaches itself to the uterine wall, it literally obliterates, it literally takes that uterine wall and it shreds it so that, you know, all these vessels can literally go through it and attach itself directly to the blood supply. Okay. And this is how that fetus will get its nutrition, it will get the oxygen exchange, but it also lets go of all the gooky stuff that they don't want, you know, the stuff that babies make in there that they don't want. This is an exchange, right? So when your placenta is insufficiently working, all it means is that it attached to a spot within the uterine wall where it's not getting that blood supply. Okay. Does that prevent you from encapsulating? No, it does not. The only time that I've seen is either when there's certain, you know, issues, diseases or problems that there may be genetic, similar to sickle cell anemia. So if you have sickle cell trait, You should not encapsulate. You should not be ingesting your placenta in any form because it can trigger your sickle cell and you don't want that. Okay. If the baby themselves come out with a sickle cell trait, if you're ingesting placenta and then, you know, feeding your baby, you could potentially trigger your baby's sickle cell super early, and you don't want that, right? Other times that you don't encapsulate is during any type of infection. You don't matter if it's internal, external, whatever. If there's any infection, you do not encapsulate that placenta. Having insufficiency does not prevent you from having your placenta encapsulated.
Awesome.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Thank
All
you
right.
for attending this, and thank you, Grace, for sharing your wisdom with us. We look forward to seeing you all. I'm putting the link to the training in the chat. Oops, I just sent that to Sherry, and that's all. All right, I put it in the chat so everybody can see it. You can click on there, go ahead and sign up for that training if you want to attend. Again, there's 2 tickets. One's for in-person, one is for virtual. If you're doing the virtual, you will be attending during the actual live training, and you'll be able to ask questions live. And if you have any questions about that, on every page of our website, there's a comment box at the bottom, and so you can text us and ask us. That will generate a text to us and a message in our system online, so we'll be able to see that, and either Natalie or myself or even Hillary will get back to you with whatever questions you have. And if you have a specific question for Grace, let me know, and I will make sure that she is able to respond to you. Grace, how can we get a hold of you outside of class? Do you want
Well,
to?
you can literally find me on nearly every social media under The Bronx Doula. So
The Bronx Doula, I like that.
Sure.
You are, girl. I'm sorry, I forgot I unmuted myself. Just a
I
quick
love that
question.
too. Yes.
What time does your class start and end? Because I'm on the West Coast, so that's kind of important to me. What
Oh yeah,
time
you are
ahead?
3 hours.
Ahead. I mean, behind.
3 hours. Okay, so I think we're doing 7 to 9 on Friday and 7 to 9 on Saturday evening.
So that
So
we
it's
Mhm. Oh, it's in
four.
the evening. Great.
Yeah.
so
So it'll
Okay,
be
awesome.
happening for you at,
Right.
at
Wow.
least. I mean, I don't know exactly what time.
so
Three,
around
Okay.
3 hours different?
3 or 4.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
around the time, 3 or 4.
So thank you.
You're
Yeah.
very welcome.
Mm.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for hosting me, for having me, and for your
Sure.
questions. Can't wait
All
to
right.
meet you.
Love it. Okay.
See you in class.
See ya.
you in class. Bye.
See you next month. Bye.
See ya.